Oh, do we got a lot to talk about today? I talked to Ja Morant yesterday, and you better believe he had a lot to say about himself, about Zach Edey, and much more. Kyle Anderson also had some recent interesting comments about the Grizzlies, specifically the 21-22 team that won 56 games. We got to get into all that coming up right here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Appreciate you guys for tuning in with me on Locked On Grizzlies each and every day as we're back to 5 days a week now. So if you didn't know, now you know. Monday through Friday, me and Joe Mullinax, or me or Joe Mullinax, will be with you here on Locked On Grizzlies. But appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, make sure you continue to tune into Locked On Grizzlies wherever you get your podcasts. Well, like, rate, comment, review, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you listen, wherever you watch. Locked On Grizzlies is there. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday. You only got to September 22nd. So this is the last week that you can take advantage of this opportunity. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Speaking of getting started, we got to get started on today's show because we got a lot to talk about and we got a lot to run through. Saw a few Grizzlies players yesterday at one of the community events. The Grizzlies partnered with Meals of Hope. Robin Hood as well was involved. The Grizzlies and Robin Hood kind of worked together and partnered with Meals of Hope with the goal of donating 60,000, packaging 60,000 meals for the Memphis community. I believe the final count ended up being well over 53,000. There were a lot of Grizzlies staffers on hand, and namely, there were some players there. Ja Morant, John Conchar, Jake LaRavia, Jay Huff was there as well. We'll talk about him a little bit later in today's show. Mondo Baycott was another one that was there. So a few of the Grizzlies players were there in person as well. And we got to talk to a couple of these guys. I got to talk to Ja Morant, which we'll lead today's show with. So just going through the breakdown here, we'll talk Ja Morant in the first segment. In the second segment, Kyle Anderson made recent comment about the Grizzlies 21-22 team. That I think is going to make for an interesting conversation. You got to stay tuned for that in the second segment. And then the third segment, finally got a chance to talk to Jay Huff. I didn't get to talk to Jay Huff leading up to this. Finally got a chance to meet the pretty tall guy. And he said himself, he's just happy he's not the tallest guy on the team anymore because he's not, because Zach Edey's here. But with all that being said, got to talk to Jay Huff. We'll talk about him later and what he had to say in the third segment. But we got to start with Ja Morant. A lot was said by Mr. Ja Morant on yesterday at this event at Streets Ministries over there on Vance. But yeah, the Grizzlies players, after he helped package up some items, he called himself Stamp Man. He was putting down the stamps on the packages as John Conchar and Jake LaRavia would pass them to him. And Ja Morant had a lot of interesting things to say. Let's start with Zach Edey. We're going to start there. And it's not a secret at this point. Most of you know, we've talked about it on the show. Ja Morant and Zach Edey worked out together earlier this summer. And this is the first time we've gotten to talk to Ja about it. I've talked to some other people who said that, Zach Edey looked good in the workouts. And I've heard little whispers here, little whisper there, all that. But this was the first time to get it from the horse's mouth, Ja Morant himself, and how this guy looks. And for reference here, I don't think of Ja as like a super, just kind of like hype your team up beyond belief. Like hype your teammate up beyond belief, excuse me. For the most part, I consider him very fair. Like, he's one of the guys who's been hard on Jaren Jackson Jr. in the past. Like, hey, he can be better than he is right now. And he's pretty fair with it. So when Ja Morant says something, it catches my eye a little bit. So, I asked Ja, I was like, hey, Zach Edey with the workouts, what's your expectations after you saw him up close? Because, by the way, this wasn't one day of workouts. I know we haven't talked about the detail of it on the show, but this was a week of extensive training together that Zach Edey wanted to do with Ja Morant. So it wasn't Ja like, hey, please bring the rook out here so I can get some chemistry with him. No, Zach Edey wanted to go out there with Ja Morant, and they made it happen. So that's how that happened. But I asked Ja pretty much, and then gave him the floor pretty much. Like, what are your expectations for Zach Edey after now you've gotten a chance to see him? And Ja leaned all the way into it. Like if you weren't high on Zach Edey already, this is probably going to make you high on Zach Edey because Ja Morant said it out of all players. And he basically looked me dead in my eye and he said, definitely rookie of the year. And then he doubled down. He said, I think easily too. Ja Morant said that Zach Edey should definitely win rookie of the year. Then he said, yeah, easily. If you weren't a believer in Zach Edey up to this point, I know there were some of us out there, so, Grizzlies should have moved up to get Donovan Clean. It didn't happen. There were some of us out there who said, oh, Khalil Ware. Yeah, guess what? Didn't happen. At this point, you just got to buy into Zach Edey. He's your guy. And Ja Morant, that's the stamp right there. To me, that is the stamp of approval. When your point guard says that you're rookie of the year, that means Zach Edey's about to get the ball. He's going to get fed. When Josh coming off that screen, he's going to be looking for that 7'4" guy. He's not going to be ignoring him. When you see a 6'2" guy standing on the rim in front of Zach Edey, we're like, Ja, what are you doing? That's not going to be a thing probably. He believes in him already. And what really caught my eye was Zach Edey earned this respect. This is a situation where it was earned, not given. This isn't a situation where, Josh, this is 2-time National Player of the Year already. Nah. He came to work out with Ja Morant. And from the sound of it, Ja didn't straight up say this, but, Ja's workouts are extensive. Like, I'm saying this. Ja calls it boot camp. When he's working out with Jonathan Thomas, Trey Draper, Mo Wells, and those guys, they put him through it. And Zach Edey wanted to be a part of that. Probably Josh like, rookie, you sure you want to do this? Like, we go hard over here. Zach Edey held his own. Zach Edey, in the workouts over the course of the week, held his own, and that earned Josh's respect. Here's what Josh said. He said, for him to come in and say he wants to work out with me and then getting through the workouts the whole week, it was big time for him. It made me excited to have him on the team. His skill set is even much better. Ja's a believer in this guy. He talked about his finishing ability and things like that. So, look, we got the fan. We're sponsored by FanDuel today. You might want to go check out the odds over there for Zach Edey for Rookie of the Year. And Ja said he definitely should get it. Now switching the tone a little bit. So Ja believes in Zach Edey, but what about himself? And of course, Ja Morant. He's Ja Morant. He believes in himself. But stick with me here. Mike Miller earlier this offseason, Ja's agent over there at Lyft, basically, made some waves when he said, how soon do they forget? Referring to Ja Morant, referring to the fact that other young players have kind of risen, the Anthony Edwards, the Tyrese Halliburtons of the world, the Shai Gilgeous-Alexanders have kind of, become prominent rising superstars in the NBA. And Ja was once that guy. And now over the last year and change, Za's name has kind of just been floating above water there, and the other guys have kind of passed him in a way. And those aren't my words. I don't think that's the case. I just think they just had, more cameras in their face and more TV time and things like that. So naturally you get more attention. But I asked Ja about it because this is the first time we've heard Ja talk about this, right? You've seen the little hints there, here and there with, okay, they're forgetting about me. But I think he handled this pretty well because you got to remember the trash talking days of Ja Morant are probably behind us. Like, when Dillon Brooks left and, that whole thing, that phase of the Grizzlies went out the window when Dillon Brooks left. So he's a little bit more mild-mannered now, but it's still there. I'm gonna read to you what he said because you'll be able to tell based on what he said because it's still there. And I asked Ja about that. Like, do you feel like you're kind of being forgotten amongst those young star players or whatever the case may be? And he says, hey, man, that's what happens. I love it. I don't got no problem with it. I see all of it. I'm not worried. I like it even more. That's just less pressure they're trying to put on me. That makes it even scarier. When I heard him say that, I said, you know what? He might be right. I've never thought about that angle. The last 2 years, the last 3 years, probably even the last 4 years, Ja Morant's NBA career has been pressure-packed. The 2021-22 season, right? 56 wins, Ja wins, most improved, going into the playoffs. The pressure's on Ja Morant. Then the next season, you get the number 2 seed. You're going against the Lakers, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. The pressure's on Ja Morant. Then, everything happens with the suspensions, right? Missed first 25 games of the season. All eyes are on you, Ja Morant. How are you going to come back from this suspension? Then the injury happens and, he fades into the background a little bit. And, you just post a couple workout videos here, a couple workout videos there. You know what? Maybe the pressure is off of Ja. Maybe this is the most relaxed we've seen Ja Morant from the standpoint of expectation in a while. And what I mean by that is surely, of course, people in Memphis and people that, cover the NBA, watch the NBA, you expect Ja Morant to be great. You expect him to be an all-star, all those things. But we're not seeing him in the headlines every day like we used to. We're not seeing all these viral, is Ja going to do this? It's not high on the list right now in NBA talking points. So the pressure's kind of fading off of him, and it allows you to woosah a little bit, right? Like Ja gets to relax. He gets to breathe in, breathe out. Everything's smooth. I haven't even thought about that. But those were Ja's words himself. He said that makes it even scarier. They're taking the pressure off of me. That's even scarier for them. I said, I didn't think about that. But we'll see what it means this upcoming season because, we're only a week or so away right now. And I'm looking forward to seeing, what that means for Ja Morant going forward. Zach Edey as well. Promising comments from Ja on him. Now we got to get to some things that Kyle Anderson said as well. Kyle Anderson made some interesting comments about the Grizzlies in recent days. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. Before we get to that, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Remember, FanDuel is where you go to take advantage of this great opportunity that we got. Because, you've heard us talk about it. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. Why? Because FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And we have something for you right now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers, all you got to do is bet $5. You get a 3-week free trial, NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, if you got that, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account. Go just make you a Google account and a current form of payment. And you can just cancel at any time if you don't like it. So just visit FanDuel.com right now. Download it because it's America's #1 sportsbook. Again, visit FanDuel.com right now to take advantage of this opportunity over at America's #1 sportsbook. Coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies, we're going to talk Kyle Anderson. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, everyone. I'm Damichael Cole. And Kyle Anderson made some waves recently. Said some interesting things, and we're going to dive deep into this because I loved covering Kyle Anderson. Really loved covering Kyle Anderson. Thought he was a terrific player, terrific role player for the Grizzlies. But let's get into this. There was a post on the Grizzlies, Grizz Nation CP, Grizz Nation Clutch Points page on Instagram. And the post basically kind of alluded to the idea, were the 2021-22 Grizzlies broken up too soon? Were they broken up too soon? If you remember the 2021-22 Grizzlies, that was the breakout year. That was the team that won 56 games, took the league by storm, got the second seed in the Western Conference, went to the second round, battled the Golden State Warriors, went 6 games, and, they were the future, right? They were the team of the future in the Western Conference. Ja Morant, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr., Dylan Brooks, stepping into this defensive role or whatever case may be. Steven Adams playing the role that he played, set the Grizzlies single-season offensive rebounding record that year. Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton off the bench with what they were doing. Tyus Jones that year, I think he was 19-4 as the starting point guard in that season. Like, everything was ho-hum humming. Like, Brandon Clark played well, earned another contract after that season. So Kyle Anderson saw that post. Well, the Grizzlies broken up too soon. And here's what he said. He said the bench was active. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. 3 of them. The bench was active. Broke us up too soon for nothing. That's what Slow-Mo said. Slow-Mo said that group was broken up too soon for nothing. And then a fan pointed out the fact that, yeah, you and Melt were balling that year. And then he said, you forgot 2 more. Tyus and BC were 2. And I'm about to pivot on this conversation. I'm not really going, look, what's done is done. We can talk about were they broken up too soon another day, whatever the case may be. What's done is done. I don't really want to talk about that part of it. But you're free. You let me know in the YouTube comments if you think the 2021-22 team was broken up too soon. I would love to know, though. Let me know what you guys think. But here's what I want to focus on. Last year's bench was not as good as the 21-22 team's bench. This year's bench, they got a case. I'm not saying they're better, but they got a case. Let's get into it. I'm going to go position by position real quick because some of you probably like, no, you're bluffing right now. You're bluffing. Stick with me. I just said they got a case. I didn't say they were better yet. I'm gonna go through this real quick. Let's break down both benches because this is the difference, right? Like, and not even last season. I said last season, but I mean the year after the 56-win season. When the Grizzlies came back the next year, they were not the same team as the 56-win team when they won 51 games. The bench wasn't as deep. It was heavily reliant on the starters, and then you had guys like David Roddy, who wasn't really ready for that moment yet. Like, he had to play big minutes in the playoffs. Remember when Dylan Brooks, kind of hit LeBron James in the wrong place, and David Roddy had to start the second half of that game in the playoffs. So that would have been Kyle Anderson or potentially even, DeAnthony Melton. Like, it's just a completely different situation. But with all that being said, here's how I want to look at this. Let's go position by position. The 5 guys who had the most minutes over the course of that 2021-2022 season as reserves compared to the 5 guys who I think are projected to do those this season. Point guard, I think it's a clear advantage with Tyus Jones. We know. Derrick Rose, Scottie Pippen Jr., it's no secret I like both of the guys, but I'm no dummy. Like, Tyus Jones got paid after leaving Memphis because of the fact that over the course of 2 seasons, we're talking about the 2021-2022 season right now. 19-4 record as the starting point guard this year. It's not going to be duplicated by either of these guys more than like Tyus Jones. That's simple. DeAnthony Melton and Luke Kennard, I'm going to come back to that. That's the second slide. Zaire Williams was the backup 3 on that 2021-2022 season. And Vince Williams is projected to play that role this year. I think that one's clear advantage, Vince Williams. Not as heavily in the direction of Tyus Jones, because if you remember, Zaire Williams was actually a decent player that year. And I say that because he played his role very well. The one stat that I keep pointing back to was the fact that he had the second highest 2-point field goal percentage on the team that year. And he wasn't just chunking threes up. He became, over the course of his career, this guy who pretty much half his shots came from the 3-point line. His rookie year, he was much more efficient, getting a lot more shots around the 2 points, mid-range, getting to the basket, catching alley-oops from Ja, running in transition, all that type of stuff. But still, Vince Williams, taking Vince Williams there. Kyle Anderson, Santi Aldama, I'm going to come back to that one. Brandon Clark is a push, right? It's Brandon Clark a couple years ago, Brandon Clark now. Brandon Clark's healthy right now, and I have no concerns whatsoever about the Achilles stuff. He came back late last season. He's kind of had a full off season, and from everything that I've heard, Brandon Clark's fine. So, push. It comes down to pretty much 2 positions in this one. And I ended up splitting them. And it's tough because you got to factor in fit, you got to factor in production and all these different things. DeAnthony Melton and Luke Kennard, I'm going, and both of these are close. That's why I said I'm going to come back to them. I'm going slightly in the direction of Luke Kennard. Slightly in the direction of Luke Kennard, because when it comes down to it in the simplest form, I need an open shot. I need a basket. I'm choosing Luke Kennard in that situation. And I'm factoring in what's around him, right? Luke Kennard is not a lockdown defender. No, but guess what? He has Vince Williams, who is capable of picking up the top perimeter options in that case. DeAnthony Melton used to guard more of the top perimeter options, but Zaire Williams was just a rookie then. He wasn't really capable of picking up those type of assignments. So different situation, but still complementary to what the bench unit needs. So the bench unit, this bench unit with Luke Kennard, they don't need him to be a lockdown defender. That bench unit needed DeAnthony Melton to be one of its most active defensive players. So with what they need and what they're capable of, I think Luke Kennard, the instant offense, the gravity that he causes. Remember that. We talk about that Lakers series a lot. Luke Kennard, when he was on the floor, the Grizzlies were much better than when he was off the floor in that Lakers series. And you also go back to that series, he wasn't scoring a lot of points. Dennis Schroeder was, it was his shadow. He was attached to Luke Kennard's jersey. And Luke Kennard wasn't getting a lot of shots off. But that gravity that he created got easier opportunities for other teammates. And that's something. That's why I'm going Luke Kennard in that one. Kyle Anderson, Santi Aldama. This one's different. I'm going Kyle Anderson in this one. And, Kyle Anderson's productive. Kyle Anderson, the defense is just clearly much, much better than Santi Aldama in this case. And Santi, again, the potential for Santi is the fact that he can be this three-point shooter, this floor stretcher. When Kyle Anderson wasn't re-signed by the Grizzlies, the clear intent there was Santi Aldama, who was entering his second season in the NBA, was going to step into that spot, right? He was going to step into that spot, and he was going to give the Grizzlies something different. Because if you go back to that 2021-2022 team, they still, just like the last couple years, they were not a great three-point shooting team. Santi was one of the guys who was brought in to say, hey, Kyle Anderson leaves below league average three-point shooter. You come in, you're supposed to be above league average, and we got a floor spacing four-man, and you're going to fit better around our guys. It has not necessarily worked out like that. The potential is still there. Like, I still think, Santi, we've seen glimpses of it. That Celtics game from last season comes to mind, and several others. But the glimpses are there. But I'm going Kyle Anderson because I know what Kyle Anderson is capable of, and I know what Kyle Anderson is going to do, point blank, period. So when you look at it like that, I just came up to a push. Tyus Jones and Kyle Anderson on one way, and Brandon Clark is even, and then Luke Kennard and Vince Williams. So with all that being said, I don't know if this bench can be better, but they for darn sure have the chance to be right on par. They have the chance to be as good. If you don't think this bench has a chance to be as good, you're not listening, you're not watching it, you're not watching these guys. We'll see how it plays out, because I didn't even say the name Gregory Jackson Jr. yet. Like, he's not going to be out forever. So with all that being said, the bodies are there. The complementary styles are there. Kyle Anderson said they broke that squad up too soon. That's TBD, because this year's bench could erase the idea of that. Sure, that next season, definitely they were broken up too soon, because that team's bench was not as good as the 56-win team. But right now, we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies. And thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen of the day. For your second listen, make sure you go enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast, because there is no offseason in the NBA. And Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less, by the way. So no one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. Coming up here next on Locked On Grizzlies, I spoke to Jay Huff on yesterday as well. What did he say? We'll find out here next on Locked On Grizzlies. So Jay Huff, interesting guy. I enjoyed talking to him, and quite frankly, he's refreshing. He talked about barbecue a lot, by the way. So make sure go leave some comments on Jay Huff's X account or his Instagram account, and make some barbecue suggestions to him. I promise he won't think you're weird or anything like that. He clearly kept indicating, like, look, I need some more barbecue spots in Memphis. You guys got any suggestions for me? I threw a couple of suggestions out there, but God loves barbecue. But what about the basketball player? And for one, I'm excited to see this guy. Two-way player, open roster spot on the Grizzlies. The opportunity is there. And I kind of asked him about that opportunity. And this is a classic example of like every NBA players are wired differently. Like they're not computers. They're not all wired the same way. Because when I asked Scottie Pippen Jr. about, the idea that does he deserve opportunities and things like that now, Scottie Pippen Jr. is going to tell you, yeah, I averaged 20 points a game my rookie year in G League, my second year. I deserve the opportunity to get a shot in the NBA. Jay Huff goes, well, I would like to think of it that way, but I don't want to get too caught up in that, right? Like a lot of guys in the G League get too caught up in the idea that I want to be in the NBA right now. I want to be in the NBA right now. And you kind of lose sense of reality sometimes in a way. So in the words of Jay Huff, he said he's just going to keep putting his trust, in God, and he's going to go from there. Very mild-mannered, very humble, very cool guy. And on the floor, we've talked about it, right? The 3-point shooting, the rim protection. Here's something that Jay Huff said, and I don't think we'll see this. I just want to give you a reference of the type of game that this guy has. So we talked first about basketball playing scrimmages 5-on-5, and I'll start there and I'll pivot all the way back to Jay Huff. I just want to quickly get sidelined to the fact that Grizzlies players have been playing 5-on-5 workouts together. I know that's a question that some people have been asking me. Are the guys working out together? Yes. They've been working out together a little bit, and it's not everyone, but the guys are coming in. Some of the guys have been working out with their teammates, so a positive sign. I know that's something that some people want to hear. They're already working out together. The coaches are already game planning and scheming together as well, so they're already getting into it. And more players are still filing into Memphis and whatever the case may be. But Jay Huff got the opportunity to guard Zach Edey already, and he's like, it's fun. It's fun. It's what he said. But he also talked about the idea of playing alongside of Zach Edey. Now, let's go ahead and nip something in the bud. It's probably not going to happen. But what if I told you I learned something when he said that? And what I learned from Jay Huff in that moment is, because we already know the game, the floor spacer, the rim protector. This guy's one of those Taylor Jenkins type of connectors. Lucas Williamson was on Locked On Grizzlies a couple weeks ago. And what did he say? He said, everybody in the G, referring to the G League, everybody in the G knows Jay Huff. And you know what? I started asking people, man, they say everybody in the G knows Jay Huff. What you know about this guy? He's tough, man. He can knock down the three. He can protect the rim. He can move his feet. I'm not saying that this guy is going to be the Grizzlies' unsung hero or anything like that. All I'm saying is there's a 15th roster spot right there for the taking. It's right there for the taking. All I'm saying is I've talked a lot about what are the Grizzlies going to do from a physicality standpoint. You got one big guy in Zach Edey who's a very big guy. But if he goes, gets a Tommy ache one day and misses a game, do you move Jaren Jackson Jr. to center? A lot of you said you don't like that. Brandon Clark, you go undersized. Santi ain't going to center. Not with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark being better options in that case. So, what's the answer? And the answer is Jay Huff. The answer is Jay Huff. He's confident. Seems like he's been gelling well with the players. He said the players have been very welcoming to him. The franchise has been very welcoming to him and his wife. So this is a guy that I think we should all keep two eyeballs open on him during the preseason, because he has a chance to solidify one of the weaknesses, or quote unquote weaknesses, that I think this roster has. A big like that who can play center and stretch the floor. Brandon Clark and Zach Edey, I'm not expecting them to go to the 3-point line much. and I'm not even expecting them to shoot them many. Jay Huff has the ability to give you that 5-out look. I mean, Jaren's going to do it too. Jaren's going to play center some and do it. But Jay Huff is another guy who has that ability. And you can keep Jaren Jackson Jr. in the game alongside of him. You can have a block party. And you can have a three-point shooting party as well. Not sure what he's going to be. I need to see more. Need to see it in the preseason. But the makeup, the profile. This is a 7. I mean, he's tall. I stood beside him. And, you know, I had to kind of stretch my arm out with the microphone so he could, you know, talk into it a little bit because it's a tall dude. Really excited, really interested to see what he brings to the table. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies on today. And guess what? Thank you for making us your first listen. Really appreciate it. Now for your second listen, make sure you go find Locked On NBA, where the local experts keep you updated daily on the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's Locked On NBA is everywhere. And you can find it in the description right here. If you're watching Locked On Grizzlies right now, Locked On NBA will be in the description after the show. So make sure you go tune in to that as well. Appreciate you guys for sticking with me on Locked On Grizzlies on today. Next week, we got a big week ahead of us. It's 1 week before the Grizzlies return for Media Day and all the other things around the team. I got some interesting stuff that we're going to talk about next week as well. And Joe Molinax will be back with us too. So make sure you guys stay tuned for all that. But until then, remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.